What if the secret to massive, like sustained success wasn't about these radical, overwhelming overhauls, but instead about doing something almost ridiculously small, maybe for just a couple of minutes a day? It sounds almost too simple to be true, doesn't it? Well, today we're taking a deep dive into the surprisingly potent world of micro habits. These are these minute, almost seamless actions that really hold the potential for truly transformative outcomes.
That's exactly right. And for this deep dive, we're drawing insights, directly from the source, micro habits, tiny actions, life-changing results. Our mission really is to uncover precisely how these subtle shifts can propel significant personal evolution, helping you reach your grandest aspirations without that usual feeling of overwhelm.
Yeah, the overwhelm. We all have those big visions, don't we? Writing that book, you always talk about finally running a marathon, launching a business, getting truly in shape, or maybe mastering a new skill. These are the dreams that genuinely excite us, right? The ones we often jump into with this huge burst of initial enthusiasm.
And that initial enthusiasm is fantastic. It really is. But here's where the journey often kind of falters. These big, inspiring goals, they can feel just inherently overwhelming, the sheer scale of it, the perceived distance to the finish line. It often triggers procrastination.
Right, or burnout.
Yeah, burnout, or we burn out before we even gain real traction, or we just give up. It happens all the time. And our brains will quite naturally, they're wired to resist sudden, large-scale change. It's energy intensive. And on a psychological level, it can feel threatening. It's almost like a primal defense mechanism kicking in.
Okay, so if the big goals often fail because they feel overwhelming, what is it about these micro habits that actually disarms that resistance? What are they, at their core that makes them work so well?
Well, basically, micro habits are extremely small routines or behaviors. They're intentionally designed to be ridiculously easy to complete. Like, think of them as the absolute minimum viable act.
Minimum viable action, okay.
Right. Yeah. And the beauty is they require so little time or effort or willpower that your brain barely even registers them as a challenge. So this removes the friction, that resistance that typically stops us. And it allows consistency to build almost automatically.
So we're talking really tiny then. Give us some examples. What does this actually look like day to day?
Absolutely. So if your goal is, say, to read more, you'd start with literally just 1 page per night.
1 page, not a chapter.
Nope, just 1 page. Not 20 minutes, not a chapter. 1 page. Or if you're aiming for meditation, maybe try just 30 seconds of mindful breathing. You could tack it on like right after you brush your teeth.
Right.
Or for exercise. Begin with just 5 jumping jacks every morning. The main point is, if it feels almost silly or insignificant, you're probably doing it right.
5 jumping jacks.
Yeah.
That really does feel almost silly. But that's the genius of it, isn't it? It's not about the size of the effort initially.
Not at all.
It's genuinely about consistently showing up. And there's some actual science behind why this seemingly counterintuitive approach works so incredibly well.
Yeah, what's really fascinating is how these tiny habits manage to bypass our brain's natural resistance. Like we said, your brain tends to shy away from stuff that demands a lot of energy or feels daunting.
That threat response.
Exactly. But when a habit is so small, so tiny that it feels, frankly, absurd to skip it, well, your brain doesn't trigger that usual fear response. You're just way more likely to actually do it. So over time, you effectively sidestep the amygdala's alarm system. That's the part that usually kicks in when we face something big and scary. It's a subtle but really powerful psychological hack.
And that connects to something even deeper, which I find incredibly compelling, is this idea of building identity. I'm reminded of James Clear in Atomic Habits, where he suggests that every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. How do these tiny votes add up? Can you expand on that a bit?
Yeah, exactly. So if you do, say, 1 push-up, it's not just about the physical act itself. It's a small but significant vote for becoming someone who values fitness, someone who doesn't skip workouts. These tiny actions, when you repeat them consistently, they continuously reinforce the identity you're actually striving to build. It's more about embodying the person you want to be, one tiny vote at a time, rather than waiting until you feel you're already that person.
And crucially, these small actions create momentum. It's like building a fire, right?
Yeah.
You start with that tiny piece of kindling, and once that's actually lit, It's way easier to keep adding to it, keep the flame going.
Precisely. That's a great analogy. And what's key about that kindling is that the initial effort is so minimal, it makes it much easier to overcome that inertia, that feeling of not wanting to start and begin building that bigger flame.
So like one sentence leads to more.
Yeah, exactly. One sentence of writing, it often just cascades into a paragraph, maybe then a page. Or one push-up can naturally extend into a 10-minute workout because you feel the energy building. One mindful breath might blossom into a full meditation session. That initial tiny spark just makes continuing so much smoother.
Right. And it's sustainable.
Hugely sustainable. That's a major point. Micro habits don't really drain your willpower, which, as we know, is a finite resource. It runs out.
Totally.
So because they're nearly effortless, they're much easier to stick to even on your off days or, when motivation is low. We all have those days.
Yeah, this all sounds incredibly powerful in theory. But for our listeners thinking, all right, how do I actually do this? Let's break down the practical steps. First up, and this might sound obvious, but it's key, really make it tiny.
Yes, absolutely. Reduce your desired habit to the smallest possible actionable version. We're talking one sentence of writing, 30 seconds of stretching, drinking one single glass of water. If it feels too easy, honestly, you're doing it right. The goal isn't to push yourself hard at the start.
Right.
It's to create zero resistance, making it almost absurd to skip. You're basically tricking your brain into starting that positive cycle.
Okay, step 2 involves a technique often called habit stacking. That's where you attach your new micro habit to an existing routine, something you already do without thinking.
Right. Think of it like finding a trigger, a prompt. For example, after I brush my teeth, I will read one page. That's a classic one. Or maybe after I make my morning coffee, I will write down one thing I'm grateful for. These existing anchors, these routines you already have, they provide crucial context and consistency. It makes it far less likely you'll forget or skip your new micro habit because you're piggybacking on something already ingrained.
Makes sense. Step 3, track it visually. Maybe grab a simple habit tracker or just use a calendar. Apparently, seeing those check marks build up creates a real psychological reward loop. It's surprisingly motivating. The simple, powerful rule is don't break the chain.
Absolutely, don't break the chain. It's incredibly effective. And finally, step 4, celebrate immediately. Now, this sounds small, maybe even a bit cheesy, but it's vital for reinforcing the behavior. You need to give your brain that instant hit of dopamine, that reward signal. It could be a quick internal yes moment, or maybe actually saying, I did it, out loud, or even just allowing yourself a little smile of accomplishment. This instantly rewards the behavior, makes your brain want to repeat it, and strengthens those neural pathways.
That simple rule, don't break the chain, it really has become legendary for a reason, hasn't it? It taps into something, primal in us. That visual streak of consistency. It's just incredibly motivating. And we've seen this play out in countless real-life scenarios, like take authors, for instance.
Oh, absolutely. We know authors who once faced, the terror of the blank page, overwhelming deadlines, and they completely transformed their output just by committing to maybe 50 words a day. That's barely a paragraph sometimes.
50 words?
Yeah, just a few sentences. But that consistent, almost ridiculously small effort, time and again, it just proves that consistency absolutely beats intensity in the long run.
And in fitness, too. The barrier to entry can feel huge for people. But starting with just, say, 2 push-ups every day can, over time, organically grow into full workouts.
Yeah.
It's often said the hardest part is just starting, right? And micro habits make that initial activation energy almost negligible.
And for mental wellness as well, even committing to just 1 minute of daily meditation. As you build that habit and actually start feeling its benefits, it can transform into a deeper, sustained 10-minute practice quite naturally. It's really about building the muscle of just showing up.
Yeah. And for productivity, where overwhelm is like a constant battle, simply starting your day by writing down one single to-do item helps you develop a clear focus. It just sets the stage for more impactful work later. These really are small shifts leading to major noticeable gains.
And this brings us neatly to the compound effect, which is where, honestly, the true magic of micro habits really reveals itself. It's all about compound growth. That snowball effect of consistent, tiny improvements adding up. Like if you manage to get just 1% better every single day, it might feel minuscule on any given day. You barely notice it.
That 1% feels like nothing.
Exactly. But over a year, you won't just be a little bit better, you'll actually be almost 38 times more effective or skilled or whatever it is than when you started. That's 1.01 to the power of 365.
48 times better. That's staggering.
It really is staggering. It shows the power of compounding. And the flip side is just as sobering. If you get just 1% worse every day, that's 0.99 to the power of 365, you end up with almost nothing, close to zero.
Wow. That puts it in perspective. It's the ultimate argument for just small, consistent progress, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's such a powerful illustration that small daily wins, when you repeat them consistently over time, lead to truly exponential progress. Which, raises an important question for you, the listener. How are your daily 1% actions compounding in your life right now?
That's a great question. Now, as powerful as micro habits are, there are a few common pitfalls people should probably try to avoid. First, and maybe most ironically, is thinking it's too small to matter.
Yeah, and that's missing the entire point. You have to trust the process and embrace the tiny. Remember, the goal isn't the initial output. It's creating zero resistance, making it almost absurd to skip. That's how you trick your brain into starting that positive cycle.
Okay, second pitfall. Skipping too often. It's easy to think, oh, it's just one page, it's just 5 jumping jacks I can skip today.
Right. But even these small habits, they demand consistency to truly embed themselves and build that compounding effect we just talked about. Look, occasional skips are fine, life happens. But frequent skips will break the chain and prevent the habit from ever really solidifying.
And finally, expecting immediate dramatic results.
Yeah, impatience is a killer here. You have to remember, microhabits are long-term tools for transformation. They're not quick fixes. Their immense power comes from that sustained, almost imperceptible effort over time. You need to play the long game.
Okay, so to recap our deep dive today, the core message seems pretty clear. Dream big, start tiny. Those grand goals absolutely inspire us, but it's these tiny, consistent habits that actually change us.
Exactly. Microhabits aren't really about doing less overall. They're fundamentally about starting smaller. It's about shifting from that destructive all-or-nothing approach to a much more sustainable always-something approach. They are, in essence, the foundational step, maybe even the gateway drug, to monumental progress. And when you embrace this, you become genuinely unstoppable in pursuing your goals.
So the takeaway for everyone listening, go ahead, start with one page, one rep, one single action, because even the tallest mountain is climbed one step at a time.